I'm Kailey, Professor Kailey.
And I'm Professor Annie.
And everyone else is less important than us. Remember that.
Anyways, we're going to be teaching you about the Texas Revolution.
Let's go to our first unimportant person, Professor Rebekah.
Hi, I'm Professor Rebekah. Firstly, I'm going to teach you about the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was the start of science and technology. And where would we be without Apple products and TV and computers? No, I love you. Okay, well, basically, the Enlightenment challenged the idea that kings had the God-given right to rule over all you peasants. Well, in the 1700s, the kings passed on that idea to their sons and their sons, and so on. The Enlightenment was also the age of reason. Everyone wanted the government to listen to their rights and interests. One of those people was Father Hidalgo. Secondly, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm going to tell you about Father Hidalgo and the Grito de Dolores. Hidalgo worked with farmers who worked in some not so very great conditions. He didn't approve of the way they were expected to live and decided, I'm going to overthrow the Spanish government. On September 16, 1810, he decided to give a speech that's known today as the Grito de Dolores, or the Cry of Dolores. So he really wanted that revolution, but his army was very poorly armed and trained.
This is really, really sharp.
I'm so sorry.
It's flesh.
But Hidalgo finally got what he wanted, because from 1810 to 1821, Mexico rebelled against the Spanish government. And in the end, a war was fought, a treaty was signed, and Mexico was independent. Now back to Annie and Kailey.
Well, that took a lot of time away from me, but I guess, thank you, Becca.
Thanks, Becca. And now to Professor Roxy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Professor Roxy. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to be teaching you about what encouraged the Texas Revolution. Basically, the Mexican government and the Texas government were arguing about some things. So, one of the problems was that Texas encouraged slavery and Mexico didn't. Also, Texas thought it was unfair that they weren't independent and they were being controlled by Mexico. So anyways, Texas started to rebel, which later caused states' rights government. This law was made during the Constitution of 1824, and it stated that each state was going to be able to make its own laws. As Texas started becoming more independent, more people started immigrating there. It was mainly because there was a lot more land. Eventually, Stephen of Boston, a very respected impresario and lawyer, brought a group of 300 families, the old 300, to Texas. Thanks for watching, and now back to Kailey and Annie.
Thanks, Roxy, for taking time away from...
Thanks, Roxy. And now to Professor Kailey. Ew, you licked my hand?
Hello, remember me? One of the most important people on this show? Well, I'm not just a lovable host. I'm also going to teach you about the Texas Revolution. Well, part of it, anyways. Firstly, if you're going to learn about the Texas Revolution, you must know about the law of April 6, 1830. The law is considered the tipping point in the Mexican-Texan colonist relationship. After the Mexican government got the Mir-Guaytaran report, they added sets of regulations against the colonists' favorite constitution at the time, the Constitution of 1824. Yeah, it was bad. The law consists of 4 parts. The outlaw of slaves, the outlaw of immigration, the banishment of impresario grants, and a customs duty tax for all goods taken out of the country. Yeah, pretty bad for Texans. But now for the Mexicans in Mexico. Secondly, the Battle of Velasco is my next lesson. The battle was the first time Texan colonists and Mexicans shot at each other, resulting in bloodshed. Ow! Texas was numbered between 100 and 150, and Mexicans were estimated to at 91 to 200. And in the end, 15 people died, 10 Texans and 5 Mexicans, resulting in a Mexican victory. Yay for Mexico! Or boo, I guess. Third of all, I'm going to teach you about the conventions of 1832 and 1833. To draft their revolutions, the colonists had the conventions. revolutionaries wanted the law of April 6, 1830 gone, obviously. I mean, who wouldn't if you were a Texan colonist and not a newly freed slave, or in Mexico? Sadly, the ideas were never presented to the Mexican government, and the conventions adjourned on April 13th, 1833. Darn. Well, I know how much you loved my lessons, but regrettably we have to get back to me and the other host.
Well, Kailey, I know that was the best lesson yet, and probably the best lesson ever.
Well, now let's go to Professor Hayat.
Hey, you didn't thank me.
I don't think your head needs to get any bigger.
Hey!
Now for Hayat.
Hi, midgets. I mean students. Today I'm going to tell you about a battle. Oh, another convention. Battles. The first battle was the Battle of Gonzales. The Battle of Gonzales was fought to uphold the Constitution of 1824, like, you know, states' rights, which the Mexican government totally ignored and passed the law of April 6, 1830, which the Texans outright hated. Well, basically, the battle was the first military engagement between the Texas colonists and the Mexicans. The battle was fought near Gonzales, Texas, and 140 Texans gathered to protect their cannon from the Mexican troops. The Mexicans arrived, and they were expecting how many troops surrounded them. They fought until the captive Mexican troops admitted to being outnumbered and outgunned, and marched out of the city with the remaining troops. The battle was also where he raised the flag with the cannon and stating, "Come and take it, woo!" The convention of 1836 comes next. The delegates were to decide whether they would break free Mexico and become an independent country, or to make the Mexican government uphold the Constitution of 1824. They decided to become independent. They adopted the Texas Declaration of Independence and wrote their Constitution, which was mainly based on the American Constitution. Next to the Battle of the Alamo, which I admit to be most famous, even though we lost. Well, Santa Anna launched an attack on the Alamo. After taking 2 attacks from the Mexican army, the Texans weren't able to fend off the 3rd attack. The Mexican soldiers scaled the walls of the fort, forcing most of the Texans to withdraw into the interior buildings. Let's face it, the Texans were outnumbered. After 20 days, 182 to 257 Texans were killed, and 400 to 600 Mexicans were killed or wounded. A Mexican victory. Now let's get back to Kailey and
I
Annie.
still think my lesson is the best.
Thanks, Hayat.
Now lastly, let's go to Professor Annie.
The saying is, last but not least.
I know.
You wound me, Kailey.
You're welcome.
Hello, I'm Professor Annie, and I'm going to be talking to you, about the Goliad Massacre, the Battle of San Jacinto, and Texas as a republic, which was basically the end of the revolution. First, let's talk about the Goliad Massacre. The Goliad Massacre was the most ill-famed part of the revolution. It gained much support for Texas. General Jose Urrea reluctantly carried it out on March 27, 1836. Basically what happened is that the Texans were brought out into a field, thinking they were being led to freedom, but then were all shot. Kind of like this. Now, next let's talk about the Battle of San Jacinto, my favorite battle. This battle was actually only 18 minutes long, and it was a surprise attack on Mexico. The Mexicans were not prepared. So in the end, we won. Also, we captured Santa Anna, which was pretty much the end of the revolution. Lastly, I must talk to you about Texas as a republic. After the revolution, Texas was a republic. We had peace with the natives, well, eventually, and everything was okay. Except Mexico didn't acknowledge that we were independent. They even invaded us. Stupid Mexico. Luckily, they retreated and everything was okay. Mostly. For now.
The stars at night are big and bright. Deep in the heart of Texas, the prairie sky is wide and high. Deep in the heart of Texas, the sage in bloom is like perfume. Deep in the heart of Texas, reminds me of the one I love. Deep in the heart of Texas,
me and Kailey.
Sadly, it's time to go.
Boo!
Boo!
I know you miss my awesomeness, but you guys have to do our activity.
That pretty much sums it up. Bye! Kailey, that's the closet.